If all goes well, I will be releasing this on November 2nd, which is Dios de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead. I thought, what time would be better than now to celebrate the 2014 Book of Life? Produced by Guillermo del Toro and directed by George R. Gutierrez. So a little bit of background on this piece. Guillermo del Toro was the producer for The Book of Life, and it's a directorial debut for George R. Gutierrez, which continues del Toro's pledge to uplift new first-time directors. This is the 5th animated film that del Toro has produced, and del Toro talks about how he grew up as a kid on cartoons. He first got his feet wet in the industry in stop-motion animation, feels he has like a unique eye and qualification to identify diamonds in the rough when it comes to animation, and really is very passionate about supporting these directors and bringing these visions to life. Gutierrez himself seems to be very passionate about Dios de la Muerte, or Day of the Dead. He and his wife got married on this day specifically so that all of his family could be there for the wedding. He could introduce his best man to his childhood best friend who had passed. He has these glowing memories of Day of the Dead and what it means for everyone to be together on that time. And it's really clear to me when he's talking that he's passionate about the holiday and passionate about like the themes and like the legend and the ideas he's bringing forward in Book of Life. And of course the goal for Book of Life was to bring something that was like authentic and specifically Mexican to film. Not only have that culture represented to people who might not have been exposed to it, but also to give a big budget production and voice to people who might only have heard these stories and legends and not gotten to see them on screen. It's kind of ironic that just a few years later in 2017, Pixar would release Coco, and for a lot of people this production overshadows Book of Life in their memory, even though Book of Life was there doing it first, and I think there's several distinctive differences between the two movies. Obviously, I think Book of Life is a delightful, colorful, fun, warm, inviting kids movie. I would definitely recommend it as a fun way to celebrate Dios de los Muertos, especially in a family-friendly way. But from our point of view, is it gothic? And I'd have to say yes. We'll start by evaluating its elements of horror. I do think this is the weakest of the 9 elements. For most adults, I don't think it checks off horror or terror very well. Gutierrez did say he originally had designed the Book of Life to be much darker than its end result. We can only go with what's on screen, not what was in someone's head. It's not exactly nightmare fuel, but I think if you were a child watching this, which is the intended audience, there are a couple moments that are scary. For example, our main character dies. Specifically, they die after the love of their life has passed so they can be reunited with them in the land of remembered, only to get to that land and find out that the love of their life is alive and will be separated forever from the person they loved most. He goes on a journey to be reconnected with his love and to save his town. And while that happens, we get exposed to the land of forgotten, which is a terrifying thing to think might happen to you or to those you care about after death, and that it could happen to you through no fault of your own. Like, you might remember the people who have died, but what happens if there's some kind of event that wipes out your whole town so no one alive still remembers your family lineage, and that puts you in the land of forgotten? And then lastly, I think the animation of the bandits themselves is kind of scary. Did a good job balancing like death as more of a friend or a thing that you could accept or come to terms with and not be afraid of. Even the bad death character, Zibalba, he has a darker design, but I don't necessarily think it's scary. However, these bandits, they have like these sharp edges. The lead bandit has these extendable, almost robot arms, which sort of dehumanizes them and makes them like harder to get rid of. I could see them legitimately scaring kids. And that moves us on to character is king, which yes, essentially we're watching these 3 children growing up and becoming adults and their love life deciding the fate of all of the realms. The decisions they make about who they choose to marry or not marry is going to impact everyone else in the story. Not just like by protecting the town or not protecting the town, but by deciding whether or not La Muerte is going to get to remain the ruler in the life in the world of the remembered, or if Xibalba is going to finally get to take over that land and she gets banished to the realm of forgotten. But even beyond that, if we look at like Manolo, who's the main character, whether he becomes a bullfighter even though he doesn't like it to follow his family traditions, or he follows his passion and becomes a singer, whether he's ever accepted, whether he is happy with himself even if he can't have that family acceptance, that's a big reoccurring theme. Joaquin is chasing after his father's footsteps. It seems like he's an orphan in this story and all he has is all these statues of his dad dying to protect the town, and he wants to live up to that name and honor him by also becoming a hero bigger and better than his father ever was. Maria a little bit is just there, like she's confident in who she is, she wants to not be like other girls and go adventuring and make her own decisions, but at the same time she allows like her father figure and other people to kind of keep putting her in her place as like the woman or the female role. That's a little bit less satisfying than the male roles here, but I think they were trying to do something with her character even with the men folk, their friendship and rivalry being the main showstopper here. Number 3. More poetic prose. I think any animation worth its salt is heavily stylized in fulfilling the more poetic prose, but Book of Life goes above and beyond in this category. Gutierrez says it was his goal to make every frame of the movie look like the art book, and I think he does a pretty good job giving everything a heavily artistic, stylized feel. It's a story within a story because we meet this tour guide who then takes the kids to like all these figurines and pieces and uses them to tell the story. The story of Joaquin and Manolo and Maria is actually a fictional fable, or perhaps like a remembering that she's telling the children. And as the characters move around the scenery and stuff, the scenes look like they're handmade, cloth, sewn, and stitched, and the characters look like they're carved out of wood with like little joints and everything like that. Elements of loneliness and longing. So mostly this story is told from Manolo's perspective, and he does feel like an isolated outcast from his family because he doesn't want to be a bullfighter. Like he's always butting heads with his dad, but even his grandma like wants him to kill the bull and be a good bullfighter. So there's just no one for him to confide in or talk to. Joaquin is an orphan. It doesn't seem like anyone really takes him under their wing and raises him. He's kind of just left to run roughshod and do the best he can. Maria, who might have been the glue that held them together as children and gave them like more sanctuary and camaraderie, is sent away to Spain at an early age to like go learn in a nun convent. And when she comes back, she is still continually misunderstood, like what her goals, her passions, or her place should be here in this like town. Delving into human mortality. The events in the Book of Life are centered around the holiday Dios de los Muertos, or Day of the Dead, and it's a day where people get to remember loved ones who are passed and where those loved ones are with them here on earth again. So I would think it definitely explores death, how people can still have an impact on you beyond death, and how you can have an impact on them, whether you choose to remember and honor them, sending them to the realm of the remembered, or whether they are forgotten and put into that realm instead. The movie does blur the line a little bit between life and death, as the life after death is so similar, just better than the life happening now, but it encourages young people to make the most of life while they are living so that they can make connections with other people who will remember them after they're gone, so they can do great things that'll help those who they leave behind, all that kind of stuff. And I think it does a good job like balancing the pressure of doing great works versus being a great friend, and sort of like evaluating how both of those things can leave you in the realm of remembered and make you a valuable member of society. Supernatural elements. There are 3 deity-like figures in the story. There's La Muerte, Xibalba, and the Candlemaker. All of them sort of have a hand in the life and death of mortals. There's 3 different supernatural realms where each one of them reside. There's the ability to bring people back to life after they've died. There's a magic metal that can make you undefeatable. I'd say generally there's plenty of magic and whimsy to go on with a story. Elements of folklore and superstition. The story heavily borrows from Mexican folklore, and I think it does it in like a fun, authentic way that gives it a lot of flavor and style and panache that feels true enough or from what I know of that culture, feels related to it. I'm totally giving it the point. I'm open to other people's opinion on it, but from what I know, it feels very centered in that kind of mythology and background. And last is a strong sense of place. I'd have to give this yes too. The story opens up in a magical version of Mexico, and they do a great job establishing it. And they start with everybody knows that Mexico is the center of the world. As it's the center of the world, the underworlds are below them, the land of the remembered and the land of the forgotten. So they set up where we are, why we're there, why it's important, and like where the story is gonna happen. Of all of the realms, I think the land of the remembered has the most like presence and atmosphere, perhaps most closely followed with the land of the forgotten, which is really scary and dark, I think, for younger children, and perhaps like scary for adults if you consider being stuck there after you die. That's not to say the magical Mexico they created doesn't feel like a real place with personality, because there certainly is a lot of personality and charm. It's just a little bit removed from like real Mexico, but not quite as whimsical as you get in those fantasy realms. So it's not really grounding, but it's also not 100% verbose and larger than life. It still definitely plays a key part. Like, there is no story if this doesn't happen in Mexico. It's not quite as strong to me as some of the other places. This is my favorite Dios de los Muertos, Day of the Dead kind of story. I think it's great for adults and children. I really have a good time with it. It's super cute. It's got great music, stunning visuals. High recommend as a story, and high recommend as a fun like introduction for kids to some slightly gothic style storytelling. It's heartwarming and just a good time overall. I hope you guys have enjoyed this review. If you've gotten this far into it, leave me a skull emoji. And as always, keep reading.